Some men are born into the darkness, others walk toward it willingly. But then, there are those who become it, shaped by loss, haunted by visions, and remembered not for how they lived, but how they wrote about death. Edgar Allan Poe is one of the most iconic names in American literature. A master of the macabre, a poet of pain, a teller of twisted tales. But behind the myth, behind the raven, the black cat, the haunted houses and premature burials, there was a man more tragic, more troubled, and perhaps more brilliant than any of the characters he created. He was an orphan, a genius, a drunk, a critic, a lover, a widower, and finally a mystery. His life was short, his death unexplained, but his legacy eternal. This is the true story of Edgar Allan Poe, a life lived on the edge of madness, genius, and the grave. He was born on January 19, 1809, in Boston, Massachusetts. His parents, David and Eliza Poe, were traveling stage actors, performers scraping together a living in a young and uncertain country. His father abandoned the family when Edgar was just a year old. His mother, Eliza, died of tuberculosis the following year, in 1811. She was 24. Edgar was 2. He was taken in by John and Frances Allen of Richmond, Virginia, a wealthy merchant family who never officially adopted him, but gave him their name. From the beginning, Edgar lived between worlds, not a servant, but not a son, not destitute, but not secure. He was bright, unusually bright. By age 6, he was writing poetry. By 13, composing long verses and immersing himself in literature and Latin. But the relationship with his foster father, John Allan, was difficult. Poe was emotional, sensitive, deeply imaginative. Allan was strict, pragmatic, and saw little value in poetry. The two clashed constantly. In 1826, Poe enrolled at the University of Virginia. He was 17. There, he studied ancient and modern languages and quickly earned high marks. But the university was young, poorly regulated, and filled with gambling, drinking, and dueling. Poe fell into debt, some of it his own doing, some of it from lack of support from John Allan. When Poe asked for more money, Allan refused. Humiliated and desperate, Poe dropped out within a year. He returned to Richmond, only to find that his sweetheart, Sarah Elmira Royster, had become engaged to another man. Heartbroken and financially cut off, Poe left for Boston in 1827 and began supporting himself as a clerk and newspaper writer. That same year, at just 18, he published his first book of poetry, Tamerlane and Other Poems. It went almost entirely unnoticed. Out of options, Poe enlisted in the United States Army under a false name, Edgar A. Perry. He served for 2 years, rising to the rank of Sergeant Major of Artillery. But the life of a soldier didn't suit him. With the help of Frances Allen, he reconciled briefly with John Allan and entered West Point in 1830. But the peace didn't last. Less than a year later, Poe was deliberately court-martialed. He stopped attending classes and refused to follow orders, essentially forcing his own expulsion. His relationship with John Allan disintegrated permanently. Now in his early 20s, broken alone, Poe turned to the only thing that had never left him, writing. He began submitting stories to contests and magazines. In 1833, he won a prize from the Baltimore Saturday Visitor for his short story MS, Found in a Bottle. This small victory marked the beginning of his literary career. He moved to Baltimore, where he lived with relatives, including his Aunt Maria Clem and her daughter Virginia. Poe would later marry Virginia when she was just 13. He was 27. In the early 1830s, Poe's stories began appearing in magazines and journals. They were dark, psychological, and unlike anything American readers had seen before. Tales of madness, guilt, premature burial, doppelgangers, and descent into the abyss. Poe's work tapped into fears that were personal and universal. By 1835, he became the editor of the Southern Literary Messenger in Richmond. Under his leadership, the magazine's circulation grew significantly. Poe became known not only for his fiction, but for his brutal literary criticism. He earned a reputation as the Tomahawk Man, a reviewer who spared no one, even the most respected names in American letters. But with success came self-destruction. Poe drank heavily. He quarreled with employers. He moved from job to job, city to city, Philadelphia, New York, Baltimore, unable to hold a position for long. In 1845, he published The Raven. It was an instant sensation. Nevermore became a household word. The poem cemented Poe's reputation as a literary figure, if not a financially successful one. He was famous, but still poor. His personal life unraveled. Virginia, his young wife and cousin, had begun showing signs of tuberculosis years earlier. She was frail, often bedridden, and Poe was tormented by the idea of losing her. He poured his anguish into poems like Annabel Lee, Lenore, and The Raven, all mourning a beautiful, doomed woman taken too soon. Virginia died in 1847. She was 24, the same age Poe's mother had been. After her death, Poe spiraled. He drank more. He wrote less. He drifted between homes, stayed with friends, and even attempted to rekindle his teenage romance with Sarah Elmira Royster, who was now widowed. By 1849, Poe was physically and emotionally exhausted. But he seemed to be turning a corner. He gave lectures. He published new essays. He became engaged again to Sarah Elmira. There was even talk of starting a literary magazine of his own. Then something strange happened. On September 27, 1849, Poe left Richmond bound for Philadelphia. No one knows why. He never made it. On October 3rd, he was found in Baltimore, delirious, disoriented, and dressed in clothes that weren't his. He was taken to Washington College Hospital, where he drifted in and out of consciousness, reportedly calling out the name Reynolds repeatedly. He died on October 7, 1849. He was 40 years old. The official cause of death was listed as congestion of the brain. But the truth remains a mystery. Theories abound: alcohol poisoning, rabies, tuberculosis, heart failure, syphilis, even murder. One of the most bizarre theories is that Poe was a victim of cooping, a practice in which gangs kidnap men, drug them, and force them to vote multiple times in local elections. We may never know what happened in those missing days. What is certain is that Edgar Allan Poe died alone, confused, and far from home. He was buried in an unmarked grave. Years later, admirers raised funds to move his remains to a more prominent spot, where a monument now stands. Visitors still come. Every year, thousands leave flowers, coins, and notes. For over 7 decades, a mysterious figure known only as the Poe Toaster visited his grave on the poet's birthday, leaving roses and a bottle of cognac. Poe's influence has never faded. He is considered the father of the modern detective story. His tales helped shape the horror and science fiction genres. Writers from Arthur Conan Doyle to Stephen King, from H.P. Lovecraft to Joyce Carol Oates, have cited him as an inspiration. But more than anything, Poe Poe gave voice to the inner darkness that we all carry, the pain of loss, the terror of the unknown, the weight of memory. He once wrote, "The death of a beautiful woman is unquestionably the most poetical topic in the world." He didn't just write it, he lived it. Again and again, orphaned, widowed, broken. And yet through the gloom, he left behind a light flickering, strange, unforgettable. Poe's life was short, tragic, and filled with sorrow. But his words, they endure. They whisper to us in the night, in shadows, in dreams. And maybe that's the point. Not every genius shines. Some burn, quietly, completely, until all that's left is the echo of their voice and a raven's cry in the dark.